Welcome to the Women Are Worthy show. I'm excited about this next candidate. This, not only is she worthy, she's qualified. So without further ado, you guys normally know that I go through this whole spiel when I'm introducing my guests. Whew, okay, let me calm down for a minute now because I've been waiting to get this phenomenal woman on our show. Now, Cobb County, get out and vote. Tomorrow is June 9th. Get out and vote. You got to go out and vote. So without further ado, we have Judge Kellie Hill. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It is truly my honor.
And it's a pleasure of us having you on the show. You are worthy. My interns have been talking about Kellie Hill. And they're from 13 through 19. And they're like, Judge Hill, you're going to have Judge Hill on the show? We got a lot of questions for her.
Well, wonderful.
Now, we want to know, because tomorrow's your general election. We want to know, can you please tell us a little bit about your background? And I'd like you to do that because for some that are not familiar with you, and Lord knows, everyone should know who you are. But for those who don't, just give us a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. Well, let me just start by saying I am a 30-year resident of Cobb County. I moved here from New Jersey, where I was born and raised. I was born and raised in Jersey City, New Jersey, and I was educated in public schools and private schools in New Jersey, and then went on to college in Philadelphia. I went to the University of Pennsylvania, and I obtained my Bachelor of Arts degree in International Relations, and I had a concentration in International Business from the Wharton School. And quite frankly, thought that I was going to be an international corporate attorney. That was going to be the route that I was going to take to the bench because I've always wanted to be a judge. After finishing Penn, I then went on to law school at Rutgers University, where I obtained my JD, or my Juris Doctorate. And during my summers at Rutgers, I was awarded a summer internship with one of the large firms there in northern New Jersey. It was called Hannick Weissman. And I rotated through the corporate, tax, and litigation departments and really thought that corporate was going to be the way that I would pursue my career and make my way to the bench ultimately. I worked 2 summers and it was time for me to graduate. And I had to make the decision whether or not I was actually going to stay and work in northern New Jersey or New York, or if I was going to do something different. And quite frankly, if I was going to stay in New Jersey, I would have to have kept the job that I had there at Hannick. It would have paid the salary that I needed in order to live there in New Jersey. And I made the decision that that was not what I wanted. That was not the route that I wanted to take. And because I knew that salary would be an issue, I packed up. I left New Jersey and I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where I didn't know anyone. And I went out there on faith and decided that I was going to plant my feet here and start my career. And that's exactly what I did. It wasn't as easy as it sounds, though. I moved here to Cobb County. I lived in an apartment. And while I was living in an apartment, I was sending out resumes. I was trying to get hired somewhere, but I had not yet sat for the Georgia bar exam. Remember, I went to school in New Jersey. And so I was sort of caught between a rock and a hard place because every time I would go and interview, people would say, wow, we really like you, but we need for you to get barred before we can hire you as an attorney. And then I'd say, that's fine. Hire me as a paralegal. I'll take it. And they'd say, we're not going to invest the time and resources that we would have to invest in you to train you to work here in our legal department as a paralegal, because you're going to pass the bar and you're going to want to work as a lawyer. And that's not the way, we would actually plan if we hired you. You would have to stay as a paralegal. So I was sort of caught between a rock and a hard place until I sat for the Georgia bar exam. But I had to make a living. I had to live. So what did I do? I worked odd jobs. I worked through temp agencies. I set up carpet sales appointments. I worked as receptionist in law offices. And then once I got a job with a marketing research firm, And I was setting up through cold calls, focus groups. And just by happenstance, I had a conversation with a woman who was a legal recruiter. And she actually did qualify for the group that I was recruiting her for. And she and I engaged in a conversation. And she told me that she was interviewing for a receptionist position at a law office in East Atlanta. This marketing research firm was here in Cobb County. It was actually within walking distance of my apartment. But I decided, you know what? Working as a receptionist in a law office in East Atlanta is probably better for my career than working in marketing in a marketing research firm here in Cobb County. And so I did. I accepted the invitation. I went down and I interviewed. And I was hired. I was hired as a receptionist in a small personal injury firm in East Atlanta. And after about 2 weeks, the lawyers in the office said, okay, we're not going to keep you on our front desk. We're going to put you to work. And so they did. They put me to work as a legal assistant. And I worked as a legal assistant in a personal injury firm, getting cases together and prepared for negotiations. These were all personal injury cases where individuals were harmed through some negligence of another individual. They then would go on to negotiations and settlement. And if they didn't settle, then a lawsuit was filed and would actually go through the litigation process and through the courts. So throughout my time as working as a legal assistant, I genuinely thought that eventually I was going to pass the bar and I'd be negotiating these deals. But one of the partners at the firm said to me, I think litigation in court would be really good for you. And my initial response was, oh, no. I don't want to be in court as a lawyer. I want to be in court as a judge, but not as a lawyer. Just give me an office, a stack of papers, and a pen. And I'm going to work these deals. I'll draft contracts. I'll do whatever you need for me to do. But I don't want to be a trial lawyer. And he says, no, I think you'd be great. So he ended up partnering me with one of the lawyers who actually did the court trials. And I would sit with him, second chair, and just sort of observe and assist him during the trials. And at some point, the same partner says, listen, I really think that you need to start getting some trial experience. If I introduce you to someone, would you at least go for an interview if you're invited? So of course I'm going to go for an interview. Mm-hmm. And I did. That interview was with the DeKalb County Solicitor General. His name was Ralph Bowden. And Mr. Bowden offered me an interview. I went in, I interviewed with him, and lo and behold, he offered me the job as an assistant solicitor. And an assistant solicitor is a prosecutor who prosecutes misdemeanor cases. And I decided that I would take that job. It was really just to distinguish myself from all the other lawyers who didn't have any trial experience. I'd do it for a couple years, and then I'd come out and I'd work as that jet-setting international lawyer and make a ton of money. That was my plan. And I went to work for Ralph. I got into a courtroom. I started doing trials, and I started having out-of-body experiences. It was clearly something that, quite frankly, it seems as though I had a gift to do and didn't know it.
Wow.
And I did that, still with the plan just to do it, for a few years. I had given Ralph a 3-year commitment. So I knew for 3 years I'd be working with him. In my second year of working with Ralph, I got a call from Lewis Slayton, who at the time was the district attorney in Fulton County. Mr. Slayton called and asked me if I wanted to come and work in his office. And I thanked him, and I told him I had not fulfilled my commitment to Ralph. I was only in year 2 of a 3-year commitment, and that I had to finish up. So I continued, and I worked for Ralph for another year, and I got another call from Fulton County. And at that point, I decided, okay, well, I've got misdemeanor experience. I'll just move on and get a little felony experience, which is what prosecutors in the district attorney's office does. They handle felony cases. And I decided I'd just go get a little felony experience, and then I'd move on and I'd become this jet-setting corporate attorney, travel the world and make a ton of money. So I thought. And I went to work for Lewis Slayton, And during that time, my dad took very ill, and I ended up being able to spend some time with him before he passed. And then I came back, and Mr. Slayton made an announcement that he was no longer going to seek re-election. He was going to retire. And when Mr. Slayton retired, Paul Howard was one of the candidates. He ran, and he ultimately won and became the district attorney in Fulton County. And I began working for Paul Howard as the elected district attorney. It was through working with Paul Howard that he stumbled on me in the office one Saturday. I was there working by myself on a case that I had upcoming for trial. It was what I thought to be a simple armed robbery case. I had 3 young defendants who were robbing people of their sneakers in the West End in Atlanta. And I was putting the case together. He happened to be roaming the hallways one Saturday. He saw me. He came in, sat down, and asked me what I was working on. I told him. He freaked out and says, "Oh my gosh, you can't handle this case by yourself. I'm going to have to get somebody to sit with you." And I didn't quite understand what the big deal was. So anyway, we got a more senior assistant district attorney to sit with me. And we went to trial. And we started the case with the 3 co-defendants who were on trial for armed robbery. You know, I had witnesses come in. There was one individual who had identified the individual who robbed him. And so we put him on the stand, and I questioned him, and I asked him if he recognized the person who had stolen his sneakers. Now, he had already told me that he recognized the person, and he had already told the police that he recognized the person, and he identified the person. So we're now in court, and I asked him the question, and his answer to me was, "No, ma'am, he's not in here. I don't see him. You guys have got the wrong person." And so immediately I started to question him. "Well, do you remember coming in my office and you remember looking at individuals and you told me that you recognized someone as being the person that robbed you?" And he said, "Yes, ma'am, I know I did, but I made a mistake. You all have got the wrong person." So it was sort of the beginning of my trial by fire. We later found out during a break that that individual had been threatened. His family had been threatened. And ultimately, we were able to share that information with the jury. We also had to lock down the entire floor of the courthouse so that no one could come or go, because we found out that we had individuals that were in the courtroom who were responsible for the threats. So we ended up making arrests there in the courtroom for witness intimidation. And I give this very long story because one of the individuals who was arrested that time in my very young career as an assistant district attorney, his name was Jamil Al-Amin. And Jamil Al-Amin was the uncle of one of the defendants who was on trial. So to come full circle, years later, when I'm a more seasoned attorney and actually supervising other assistant district attorneys in the office, a file came across my desk, and the named defendant was Jamil Al-Amin. And for those people who don't know, Jamil Al-Amin is also known as H. Rep Brown, one of the former Black Panthers from the 60s and 70s. Jamil Al-Amin was accused and later convicted of shooting 2 sheriff's deputies, killing one, and seriously wounding the other. And it was a case where he had fled Atlanta and ended up in Alabama. And when the U.S. Marshals became involved in the search, he shot at the U.S. Marshals as well. So there was also a concurrent federal case to go along with it. Jamil Al-Amin was probably the first big case that I tried, but it was the beginning of many cases that I tried that got international as well as, just broad coverage. And it was sort of the beginning of my career that led me to become one of the prosecutors in the office that was responsible for trying several of our high-profile, several of our complex litigation cases, in addition to actually heading up our public integrity unit. Oh. The public integrity unit was the unit that investigated, and either made indictment recommendations or administrative recommendations to a particular agency on how to deal with officer-involved shooting cases. And I say that because, again, as we come full circle, that is exactly what we are looking at and dealing with today, unfortunately. The case that people have seen on television within the last couple weeks that happened in Minnesota is one that I had to look at on a daily basis, except we didn't have video. I had police reports and testimony, if I was lucky. The case that we saw earlier in the month that happened down in Brunswick, those were cases that I would see on a daily basis. And so between being the director of public integrity, between supervising about 30 lawyers who were also trying cases, and also trying the office's complex and high-profile cases, I had a career in the district attorney's office that spanned for 22 years. I was a prosecutor for 22 years. I've been on the bench for the last 4 years, sitting as a magistrate court judge here in Cobb County, because after I retired from prosecution, I went back into private practice for a short time doing some personal injury work, and I set up my own law practice. And at that time, 4 judges decided that they were going to retire. I ran. I was not successful in the very first election, although I did make it to a runoff out of 5 candidates. But within 3 months of that election, I was called by our chief magistrate judge, Joyette Holmes, and I was offered a position as a full-time magistrate court judge. And that is what I have been doing for the past 4 years. And as a magistrate court judge, I have also been one of 3 judges on the court who gets to sit as a superior court judge by designation of our current superior court bench. Mm-hmm. So in addition to doing magistrate court work, I also do superior court work, and I've been doing both for the last 4 years. And that's a very long way to kind of give you a broad stroke of my background legally and what I've been doing here, both in Atlanta, in DeKalb, and in Cobb counties, and always having remained a faithful Cobb County resident. And I say faithful because people would encourage me to move to Fulton. I had a 22-year career in Fulton County. They knew I wanted to be a judge. And they told me, if you want to be a judge, you need to go to the county where they know you and they know your work. And my response was, I am a Cobb County resident. This is my home. My children were raised and born in Cobb County. I am going to stay in Cobb County, and I am going to one day be able to serve the citizens of Cobb County. And that is what I have been doing for the past 4 years. And that is what I hope to continue doing from the Superior Court bench.
You have, when you said you were, we needed to hear that. We needed to hear not just your qualifications, but can I tell you, your passion. It comes through. And that's what we want from someone sitting on the bench. We understand that there's laws and there's things that you have the experience. And that's what I love about this. You have the experience and the dedication. And we want to thank you for your loyalty, because not many people would have stayed in Cobb County. They would have just, let me go to Fulton County. I have my roots there and they know me. And I'm so glad the citizens understand and know who you are. And, you're appointed. And now we want to make sure, because Jacqueline Charles, not the Women Are Worthy show, Jacqueline Charles wants to see you as a Superior Court judge. Okay. Because I've seen the things that you've done. And just listening to you, I'm learning more of your background, but I knew you were qualified. It brings me to this next question. What inspires you, Kellie? What inspires you? I'm just hearing when I look at you, the word that comes up is effervescence, because you're positive and you're motivating and you're such a great spirit. What inspires you?
Okay, so let me go back to my original inspiration, and then I'll go on to tell you exactly what keeps inspiring me. So my original inspiration happened when I was probably about 13 years old. I met a woman. Her name was Shirley Tolentino. Shirley Tolentino was the first African-American woman appointed as a judge in my hometown of Jersey City. And as a 13-year-old girl, I got to meet her. Her husband was my mom's orthopedic doctor. And that's how I got to meet her. And I remember at that moment looking at that woman and saying, that's what I want to do. That was my inspiration. And that's why I knew I wanted to be a judge. But how I was going to do it was not really part of the plan. That part I had to figure out. And quite frankly, I don't believe I figured it out, because what my plan was not the path that I ended up taking. So I do know that what I do is a calling. I feel called to do what I do. And that leads to what continues to inspire me. What I believe is, when I go to work in the morning, I'm not going to work to make a living. I'm going to work to make a difference.
Oh, wow.
I want to make a difference. And that difference can come in many ways. It can come as a young 13-year-old girl who happens to see me on the bench now, who then knows that she too can do it. Or a young man. I want to make a difference for those individuals who come into my courtroom and need a fair and impartial forum to be heard. That is what they will have in my courtroom. I will make no judgments. I will not rule in any way that is inconsistent with the law. I will always follow the law. Both sides of my courtroom will have a fair and equal opportunity to be heard. And if the decision is left up to me, it will be done so with serious deliberation and consideration of whatever the law is and whatever the individual facts and circumstances of that particular case is. That is what a judge is supposed to do. And that's what I want to do. That is what I want to give to this county, to the citizens. I want to make a difference. I want to start a mentoring program for youthful offenders, where they can be exposed to professionals who I hope will volunteer from our community, to serve as mentors so that young men and young women can see what they can be. Because sometimes it's just a matter of exposure. And if they come through my courtroom, I get to order it, and they have to do it. And it's a program that I am very passionate about. Family violence is a serious issue. I have sat as almost the primary judge who does protective orders in our county. And I've heard those cases for the past 4 years now. I hear cases of domestic violence where individuals are asking for protection from the court. And I decide whether or not to issue that order of protection. That is something that I know it's an issue in our county. And now during the pandemic, when people were sort of forced to be at home and people were losing jobs and tensions were high and anxiety was prevalent in households, issues of violence became more and more real. And we deal with them in our courts every day. And that is something that I am passionate about as well. I want to make sure that our family courts are courts where people can be heard, where they can have hearings, and where we're dealing with those matters, because these people need resolution, and they need resolution quickly so that they can move on with their lives. So we need judges who are experienced in both domestic related issues related to family violence. We need judges who are experienced in criminal related matters. And you're looking at a person who has 30 years of legal experience that includes criminal and civil work, and not in a peripheral way. I have been in the trenches. I was the lead prosecutor in the Fulton County courthouse shooting case against Brian Nichols, where a judge was sitting on the bench and shot and killed in his courtroom, where a sheriff's deputy was shot and killed, where a court reporter was shot and killed. I am not afraid to be in the trenches and to make those difficult calls and to handle those complex cases. I've got that experience, and I can bring it to the bench here in Cobb County.
Look, if this doesn't get you elected, I don't know what will. Because just listening to that, again, like you said, you've been in the trenches. Now, my interns have asked me, can you please ask her what's the difference between a Superior Court judge and a magistrate judge? And I think a lot of adults don't know the difference either. So can you
You're
please?
right. You're right. Thanks for that question, because
Mhm.
you're absolutely right. Most people don't know, and quite frankly, you probably wouldn't know unless you have a reason to research it. So magistrate court is what we like to call the people's court. It is the court where we have probably the most interaction with our community. People come through magistrate court for many reasons. We handle civil cases where individuals are suing one another if the damages are less than $15,000. If it's more than $15,000, then it can either go to state court or superior court for a hearing. We handle garnishments. We handle writ of possessions or dispossessories for people who are being evicted from homes. We handle criminal bond hearings on misdemeanors, and then those of us who have superior court orders also handle bond hearings on felony cases. We handle citizen arrest warrant hearings where one citizen wants to take out an arrest warrant against another. We conduct those hearings and decide whether or not to issue a warrant. When police officers want an arrest warrant or if they need a search warrant, they come through the magistrate court and get those. So we do many things. I tell people, if you were to compare us to sort of the hospital or medical structure, magistrate court is sort of the emergency room of the court system. Many things come to us on the front end when it first happens. When we get it, we handle it, and then we kind of triage it and decide if it needs to go to another court. And if so, we bind it over, which means transfer it to state court if it's a misdemeanor, because state court handles misdemeanors, or superior court if it's a felony, and that's in the criminal arena. If the damages are more than $15,000, then that individual can file in state court or they can file in superior court, because both of those courts have jurisdiction over those matters. I kind of call state court our primary care doctor. They're the doctors who can come in, they can treat you, they can handle your case pretty much from beginning to end, depending on what it is. But if you need a specialist, if you need a surgeon, then it's probably going to be in superior court. Superior court is our highest trial level court. And superior court has jurisdiction over felony cases, over death penalty cases, over civil cases. Superior court has exclusive jurisdiction over domestic cases, and also exclusive jurisdiction over real estate matters. Superior court is the court that hears the protective orders, and I'm sitting as a superior court judge when I hear those cases. So there are many things that superior court handles that other courts just don't have the jurisdiction to handle. So that's the difference between magistrate, state, and superior courts.
Okay, well, I want everyone to, if you're tuning in or if you're watching the replays later on, please make sure you go out and vote. Vote, vote, vote. Tomorrow's the election, June 9th. Tomorrow's Tuesday. I want to hear, look, I cannot wait to see what's going to happen because we have to speak this into existence. Now, Kellie, are you running on a party ticket?
No. So
wait a minute. Wait. What did you just say? No?
I said no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I am not running as a Democrat or a Republican. And I like to make that clear. Judicial races are nonpartisan races. We do not run on a party ticket. We are on both ballots. And primarily it's because judges have to follow the law. No matter what our political leanings are, no matter what our personal ideologies and beliefs are, we take an oath to follow the law and the Constitution. And we are not beholden or connected to either party. They are nonpartisan races. So please, when you're voting for your judges, do your research, because it's really not about a party. You're going to see everybody on both ballots. So the key is to vote for the best qualified candidate. It's not a partisan race.
She's the best qualified candidate. Okay. Well, okay, your race is on Tuesday's ballot, right?
Yes.
There's some questions surrounding will there also be a ballot in November?
I'm glad you asked that question. There will be a ballot in November, but not for the judges. My race will be decided this week.
Okay.
Tomorrow, whatever votes are cast, tomorrow, June 9th, will decide my race. In some races where you've got several candidates running for judge, there may be a runoff, and that will be decided in August. But my race is decided this week, so I need people to come out and vote. Please, please come out and vote. Let your voice be heard. You can vote in person, or if you have an absentee ballot, you still have time. You can complete your absentee ballot. There are drop boxes throughout the county. You just take it to one of those drop boxes and deliver it, and do so before 7 o'clock tomorrow. Please do not put it in the mail. It will arrive after the election and it will not be counted. So go in person or drop it off in a drop box. But please, please, please vote tomorrow. It's the only chance you will have to vote in who becomes your next Superior Court judge.
And I want people to, again, I'm constantly telling people to vote. If you don't vote, you don't have a voice. And I am telling people you can't complain if you're not in the race. If you're not in the race, you won't be able to finish. So I'd like you to leave, because I know you have a lot of things going on. It's Monday. The decision will be made tomorrow. So I know you have so many things. And again, I want to thank you for being on the show. It's Monday. It's the day before election. You have tons of things to do. Can you please leave a lasting message that you would like to have the voters, and there's people we know are going to vote for you, but we want people who are on the fence, who are not sure, I just watched this show and I'm liking this person. So can you just give them that additional information so they can go in and, press your name?
Absolutely. Well, let me tell you this. When you're looking for a judge, most people really and truly don't research the judges. People don't pay attention to who your judges are, unless, God forbid, somebody has to show up in court. And then all of a sudden, who that judge is becomes very important to them. They're standing outside of the courtroom saying, oh my God, Judge Hill, who is she? What's she like? But it's too late because Judge Hill is already on the bench. So that's why I encourage people to make sure you do your research and vote for the candidate who has the intellectual and emotional intelligence to follow the law, not make decisions based on emotion, but based on the law, based on the Constitution, and then consider all of the facts and circumstances. There is no such thing as a cookie cutter sentence. Every case is different. Every case deserves individual thought and deliberation, and that's what I will give it. And I am absolutely committed to the integrity of the process. Everyone will have equal protection under the laws and Constitution in my courtroom, and you will be heard with an open mind and treated fairly and with respect. I am the candidate who has the experience. I have 30 years of legal experience. I have a commitment to the integrity of the process. And I promise you, I am absolutely the candidate who is best qualified for this seat. Please do your research. Visit my website. It's www.electjudgekellyhill.com. And as you can see the sign behind me, Kelly is spelled with an I-E, and my last name is Hill, Hill. www.electjudgekellyhill.com. If you don't remember that, then I'll ask you to do one other thing. Text the word judge to 21,000. You'll get all of my contact information. If you just text the word judge, Judge, to 21,000, you can connect with me, and I promise I'll respond.
Yes, I'm posting your website. And in closing, I just thank you for being on the show. Good luck We know we want you to bring it home. Thank you for doing such an amazing job thus far, and we know you're going to be doing greater job in the future. So again, we want to thank you. Good luck. We're going to be watching the election, and I'm definitely going to remind people that they need to go out and vote. I'm going to edit this and send this out. So without further ado, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning into the Women Are Worthy Show. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram, The Women Are Worthy Show, and on YouTube, we're the Women Are Worthy Network. Thank you very much, Ms. Hill. I cannot wait to hear your acceptance speech tomorrow.
Jacqueline, thank you so much for having me on the show. It has been a pleasure. I am always, always, always happy to educate people about our court system. I want to get people excited. And I want you all to take a stake in our Cobb County government. Research all of the candidates. Yes. And at the end of the day, please vote Judge Kellie Hill for Superior Court Judge. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a great day, okay?
Thank you. You do the same. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.